Hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the musicians and artists that I visit with, please be sure and hit the like button below and also subscribe to the channel. Paul Simpson is an English musician, singer, lyricist, and writer who is most known as founding member and frontman for the Wild Swans. Prior to the Wild Swans, Paul was in the original lineup of the Teardrop Explodes with Julian Cope. Paul left in 1979 to form the original Mark I Wild Swans the following year with Gerrard Quinn. There was one single released. In 1983, Paul teamed up with future Lightning Seeds frontman Ian Broudie to form the duo Care and release a trio of singles. Fast forward to 1988, and Mr. Simpson reformed the Wild Swans with ex-Lotus eaters Jeremy Kelly and Joe Fearon. Since that time, 3 studio albums, singles, and compilations of material have been released. More recently, Paul has played in the Serpents with Alan Holmes as well as Skyray. In 2004, he wrote and published the book Revolutionary Spirit about his time with the Teardrops and the Wild Swans. And in 2022, a solo album, Death Must Be Beautiful. Well, welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much, Greg. Just a slight point of order, the book came out in 2024, not 2004.
Okay, that was I might have missed the one little digit in there.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I thought that, you know, when I said that, I said that.
That's
I'm thinking to myself, that was a little long ago. Okay.
Yeah. So, do you know what? The hilarious thing is, I probably started it in 2004.
You started that.
It took me that long to finish it, you know. But apart from that, that was excellent. That was all spot on.
I think I just mistyped that because I knew that. Well, take us back. Let's go back in that time machine. Where were you born?
I was born in Huyton in Liverpool, which is an interesting little place. Quite a few musicians come from Huyton, most notably Lee Mathers of the Lars. You know, There She Goes fame. In fact, I think he had plans for a record label, so it's called Huyton. But he was put an E on the end, called High Tone Records, which I really liked, Hytone.
Okay.
But we moved when I was a toddler out to the green belt, kind of outside of Liverpool.
Okay, right. Yeah. Because I was going to say you don't have that Liverpool accent at all.
Yeah. No, I don't. But then my dad was from London. So my mum was from Anfield in Liverpool, but she didn't have a particularly strong accent either. And I kind of think sometimes it's a bit of a decision. It depends. It depends when you're a baby how your parents kind of talk to you, really. And my dad was in the Merchant Navy, so he was never really home. So I only had my mum's vocal influences. Yeah.
Do you recall early on hearing music in the household?
Oh yes, yeah. I mentioned in my memoir about very clear memories of being in like pushchair. I don't know whether you call it the same thing in America. Like you put your baby in a thing with wheels so you can kind of take it shopping,
like a stroller.
A stroller, yeah, in a stroller when they can't walk it. So I was sort of strapped in, but there was a piece of music that was absolutely huge, probably around 1960, and it was an instrumental from a film, and it was called "Theme from a Summer Place." So the film was called "A Summer Place" by the Percy Faith Strings, a very schmaltzy orchestral thing. But I went into a swoon, and because it was probably #1 in the UK charts, but it seemed to be on the radio all the time.
Yes.
And my eyes would glaze over. I'd start dribbling every time I heard it. And I think I say in the book that's when the die was cast. You know, music had me in it.
You know, I go back now, and I love a lot of that instrumental music from that time period.
Staying, so
Easy listening, they call it
yeah.
that. Or some people might say elevator music. They called it that,
Yeah,
but I love that. I love that. Yeah,
the beauty of instrumental music is that it doesn't have its feet nailed to the ground with lyrics.
right, right.
So particularly if you're a child, it's just a sort of transportation device to fantasy. I mean, uh, I'm moving forward a few years here, but what year would it have been? 66, was it when was it earlier? I Can See for Miles by The Who came out. That was the
Oh,
first thing I heard on the radio that the lyrics stopped me in my tracks
right.
because he just kept repeating, I can see for miles and miles and miles. And I was like, why is he doing that? But I don't know why he's doing it, but it's fantastic,
Yeah,
and it suggests, we know now, as we know, it's suggesting as kind of a psychedelia, it's suggesting a kind of a derangement of the senses, and somehow that I got that as a child. I couldn't name it. I couldn't name that experience, but it affected me.
it struck a chord. It struck a chord.
Yeah, and all those mid 60s bubblegum pop and early psychedelic records went in very deep with me. I didn't know what it was about, but I knew that they shared a common language.
Yeah,
All those records shared a common language. And it could be real pop, like Everyone's Gone to the Moon by Jonathan King, or the Lemon Piper's
oh,
Green
yeah,
Tambourine, or it didn't matter what side of the pond it came from. They all shared a kind of, I don't know what this is about, but I want to be part of this club.
right.
Yeah.
Started to seep into your psyche. Yeah, that you
Yeah,
could.
and just sorry, because I should have mentioned this earlier on when you asked me about very early influences, probably
Sure.
before that. So because I mentioned my dad was in the Merchant Navy, he used to bring home the Beatles singles as they came out in real time, right from Love Me Do, onwards. So again, I had an a sister a few years older than me, and my mum, and they would dance around and listen to these things on a little mono dancette player,
That's it.
and
That's it.
I would be fascinated with a little green parlophone bag,
Yes.
and or if it was an EP or something, it'd have a gloss, laminated gloss
Right.
sleeve, and it's weird, and that went in so deep with me that to this day it's still my favorite period, Beatles.
Is it?
So my partner Gemma, she's an Abbey Road girl. She's younger than me. She's an Abbey Road, and she's obsessed with that period
Yeah.
and the White Album. And I'm like, no, 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 no. But
Isn't it odd how different periods of the Beatles fans will
yeah,
attach themselves to
yeah.
exactly.
But that's
Yeah.
mine.
Well,
That's my period. Yeah.
well, I have a question. We're talking
Mm.
about 45s or singles, and maybe you can clear this up. I've always wondered why across the pond in your area over there, the singles had the one little hole in it, just like you could play an album. Where
Mm-hmm.
here we had to have an adapter. The hole was
Yes.
larger.
Yes.
Why was it set up like that? Do you have any idea? Do you know?
No, I mean, all the we had our only experience of the ones you had were in jukeboxes.
Yes, yes,
I think it might have been something to do with America had jukeboxes. We didn't really.
right, right.
I no, I can't I can't claim to know.
Just curious. I'm going to be forever asking that question until
Yeah, yeah.
I find the solution now. But it's just
But
something that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I love the few American singles
Yeah,
I have, the precious ones that need an adapter.
yeah.
Here, Little Johnny Jewel by Television on the Orc label, and
Oh,
Piss Factory by Patti Smith, on
yeah,
the MER label, the Mer label. Um,
yes.
they
So,
seemed more exotic. I mean, they
right.
were more, they cost more. So on import,
Yeah, yeah.
in 1977, 78. a single was about 70 pence in the UK, but an imported single was £1.50. It sounds ridiculous now. Coffee costs
Right.
five quid now.
Yeah, yeah. So you were into that New York scene too.
I was really lucky, right?
Yes.
So we're fast forwarding here now to 1977, 76, 77. And the only job I've ever had in my life, I had for 6 months in 1976. So I had a little bit of disposable income. And I would go into Probe Records, which is a famous record shop in Liverpool. And they'd have import singles on the wall from America. And no one knew what they were. Only Jeff Davis, who ran the shop, knew what they were. But he would recommend things to me. But they had an import bin of albums. But there was only ever 10 albums in there. And so sometimes I would just take a risk. I'd just take a risk on things. So to put it in context, I think Springsteen's Born to Run had just come out, and that had that huge campaign around it in the UK, massive. Finally the world is ready for Bruce Springsteen, all that sort of stuff. And I bought that. Oh, this is quite good, but it's not really me. It's so American. It's so fire hydrants and
Right.
Thunderbird cars and Chevrolets and stuff. So I was kind of looking for things. I bought Patti Smith's Horses because that people forget that came out in 1975, not in 77, like I'm thinking it was 75, and loved it. My mum didn't love it. She couldn't. Jesus died for somebody's sins, but not much. Oh, what's this?
No.
That's outrageous. But I saw, knew nothing really about television other than Patti Smith had mentioned them in a fanzine. Again, I used to buy. Again, it was £1.50. It's funny how I remember the prices of things because it was an investment. I didn't have endless money. So Legs McNeil's Punk fanzine from New York.
Okay.
Some of them would be imported here. Amazingly, some got to Liverpool, and I would buy. There was one of the few people that bought them. There was an interview with Patti Smith, and in that she was name checking her favorite band, which was Television. And I remember reading this article and going, Tom Verlaine. Hang on, Verlaine's a French poet. Who's he trying to kid? It's like me calling myself Paul Byron or something. But anyway, I thought if Patti says they're great, they're great. And I saw this album in the racks, Mark I Wild Television, on import. This is the beautiful original pressing, American pressing. Shrink, so it's sealed and shrink wrapped, so I couldn't look inside. But it's flipped it out, no information. But on the back, it had that kind of like a spiral galaxy sort of graphic on the back.
Yeah.
And I'd been doing a kind of art course at college in 6 months prior to that. So I was into my graphics and stuff. And I thought, God, that looks cool. And it was just 4 guys, on the front, no instruments. It was so minimal. I thought, I'm gonna risk this, spend me £4 on it. And I got it home, and that was a complete revelation. Oh my God. Yeah. So I started taking more risks. I bought Per Ubu's Modern Dance again before it was released in the UK on the hard, the original pressing. I bought Blondie's first album, which I've got to say, I love Blondie. I didn't like it. It was the first one on private stock.
Okay.
It wasn't arty enough. It was just kind of pop. It wasn't arty enough. I now appreciate that record more now. So yeah, I really loved what the Americans were doing, well, particularly the New York mob. I didn't love the Ramones like everyone else. I think you hear one Ramones track, you've heard them all.
You've heard them all.
Yeah, and it's a great one track, and it does its job. But I think what it was, I think the reason I gravitated or aligned myself more with the American stuff than the UK stuff is because lyrically it was more interesting. You
Yeah.
know, in 1977, late 76, 77, you know, it was all very on the nose, kind of, we hate the government, kind of, you know, the Queen's a
Yeah.
monster kind of
Very
stuff.
political. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but kind of a bit kind of schoolboy political as well. It's a bit all a bit, you know, on the
Right.
nose stuff. But Patti Smith and television, it was poetry.
Which,
It just responded to something in me. I was an insular, inward-looking,
okay.
sensitive young man, you know.
I think most musicians are. I think most.
Yeah.
You hit on something too that I miss. Kind of a bygone day. They're trying to bring it back with the revival of the vinyl, but I don't think it's the same. Is going to a record store, like you said, it was an experience. Going there, looking through the vinyl. There was a couple of import record stores here where I got all my imports, and one he had one area with the singles, and of course they had the small hole in it. They were imports, and so I would pick up just about all of those that I could, at the time. And he also lets you play before you bought it, so you could try them out. But it was just
that makes all the difference, doesn't it? When the record shop owner is kind of cool.
But you referenced something earlier about just the look of the cover. I picked up several that way. I liked the album cover, and I didn't know who the band was first, but then I would have him play it, spin it. Oh yeah, that was right. Then it was up my alley, and I'd buy it. But just that whole experience of going, the anticipation.
I think people don't realize now, younger people don't realize now that because of the internet, all information is available to you on your phone, on your Apple Watch in seconds.
Right.
We had no information about these guys. They were aliens from another planet.
That's right.
So all the information you got was gleaned from the music papers, if they were cool enough to have featured these groups, or what the sleeve told you, And sometimes, like in the case of what would it be, Station to Station, David Bowie. I was a big Bowie fan. I would wait for the day of release. I'd wait for the record shop to open on the day of release, and I'd be not only the first one, it was the only one in buying it. And not a probe. I'm talking about the sort of the suburban record shop, and it's a new Bowie album.
Yes.
But yeah, you know that album. There's no information really. It's just got the names of the tracks, no lyrics, and the names of the band, and there's no grammar, so all the words run into each other. I was thinking, oh God, that's all we've got, the cover, But it's still, I stared at it for 2 hours while I was listening to it.
Yes. Right.
So people, young people are kind of spoiled now.
That's
in that way. And I mean spoiled in the literal meaning, in that the experience is degraded for them. And very few people under the age of 30 or 40 probably now listen to albums in their entirety. It's only our generation that still do that. They listen to tracks and they make playlists.
Right.
And I make playlists, but I'll still favorite albums, I don't know, Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, or something like that. I can't play one track and turn it off.
You're right. We're very spoiled. You're right. You mentioned Bowie. I just spoke with something you probably already know this, but Skeletal Family, Stan Greenwood. You remember the band? I know you. That was the same time. And he, the name of the band came from Diamond Dogs.
We have a Skeletal Family.
Yes, the last track.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, I didn't know that until I did the research on that. So.
Yeah, it's funny how many, I think Manchester band A Certain Ratio, that came from an Eno song, didn't it?
Yes.
Looking for a certain ratio. And what's the famous one? Oh, the Lightning Seeds, Ian Broudie's band.
Yeah, yes.
But that comes from a misheard lyric. Ian was listening to Raspberry Beret by Prince. Fantastic single.
Right.
And it says something like, thunder hears what the lightning sees. But he heard it as Lightning Seeds. He thought, that's a good name for a band.
Lightning Seeds.
That's great. That's great, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I like to hear those origins like that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Well, we talked about the singles and some of the early influences. How about, can you recall one of the first live shows or concerts that you attended that you went to?
Oh, that I attended. Yes, absolutely. It was Hawkwind.
Oh, wow.
It was Hawkwind,
Yeah.
and it was the recording of the Space Ritual album in Liverpool. So the Space Ritual album was recorded at two venues,
Okay.
but one of them's the Liverpool Stadium, and I was far too young to be in that. Really, I think I was 13. And when I say I'm too young, because it only in the so we're talking 1972, so everyone's got long hair and army greatcoats were very fashionable at the time in the UK, and big loon flare trousers, and everyone was smoking weed, everyone. And I walked in with my friend who was called Trog, which is a Liverpool name for sort like the Trogs, the
Yes,
band
I
the Trog.
do.
It's got the long-haired, scruffy kid who's called a Trog. So Trog, was it Trog or was it another friend called Gary Dempsey? Anyway, dragged me down
Okay.
to this, and I was terrified. Oh my God, where are we? And the venue was a boxing stadium. It's called the Stadium. They used to have boxing matches on in the middle. So there's Hawkwind at the height of the kind of trippiness, 1972, liquid lens, oil wheels, Stacia with her breasts hanging out, painted up, And I'm like, this is the first gig I've ever been to.
Yes.
And my mind, space is dark, it is cold.
Yeah.
My mind was completely blown. But I didn't know what I was seeing really. But such a seminal experience for me.
I would think. I've never seen Hawkwind. I would love to see. I reached out to Dave Brock.
Oh yeah.
Of course, haven't heard back, but that would be a fascinating, interview to do. Let me ask you this. I do crosswords and see if you're up on this slang. It's a British slang term. What is anorak?
Oh, an anorak. So
Yeah.
if you call someone an anorak, it means they're
Yeah.
another slang term, a train spotter.
There
Those
you
guys that stand on
there
it's
you
someone
go.
who bores their girlfriend silly by reading the sort of what's written on the cut, the run out groove of a piece of vinyl, as if it's interesting. You
Uh-huh.
know.
Because so many wore the anorak, the jackets, and and they're. I ask it now. See, that's only pertains to certain decades and certain age groups. Because I asked a couple of older guys, they were
Yeah.
like in the 60s and 70s. They didn't know
Didn't know what that phrase
no,
meant. Yeah, yeah.
no. So I thought that was
That makes sense though, because if you think about it, those older guys in the 60s,
yeah,
rock and roll wasn't old enough,
right. Yeah.
if you know what I mean, unless,
Yes.
you go back to shellacs and, Al Bowley 78, the
Right.
wax cylinders. Rock and roll in the 60s wasn't old enough
Yeah.
for people to become anoraks.
That's right.
There wasn't enough material. There
That's
is
right.
now. Yeah.
I like the development of language too. I like that.
Yeah, I can get a bit anarchy.
Oh,
I bored my partner Gemma this morning before she went to work with. I said, "Look at this," and I thought it was really interesting. And someone had put together Roger Dean, who did the artwork for the Yes
oh
albums.
yes, yes, right.
So someone had put the back cover of Tales from Topographic Oceans
Oh,
next to the back cover of Relayer, and they match up. The rocks actually make a
yes,
new image.
right. Yeah.
And I genuinely told my partner this as if it was in any way interesting, and she just kind of looked at me like, "How old are you? How old are you?"
Right.
Although saying that,
Yeah.
she loves Yes and progressive rock as I do. Yeah.
Oh, okay. uh, there was a guy I talked to recently, John Sims. You may not know this band, Clear Blue Sky. And Roger
I won't
Dean.
pretend I do. You.
Okay, Roger Dean did their album cover. That was
Ah.
one. Actually, I think that was one of his early covers.
Oh no, I know who you're talking. Yeah.
It
Was
was
it?
kind of there we had another glitch there, but that's
No, I know the record you're talking about. It's kind of,
yeah.
is it a head? It's a man's head with some sort of, has he got headphones or he's holding his head or something? Clear clear, what are they called?
Clear Blue Sky.
Yeah, is it like symphonic prog rock?
Yeah, it is. It is pretty progressive. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you may be thinking about the same one. Interesting the story about Avatar, the film, right? And how Roger Dean. I mean, if you look at the images in that image.
Oh yeah, the floating islands. The
Oh,
trees
exactly. And
yeah.
he sued. He sued.
Did he?
Filmmaker. Of course, he lost because it's like David going up against Goliath.
Yeah.
But it's very evident. Very evident.
I did think that when I saw Avatar. I mean, I didn't. Not my kind of film normally, but I did think that unless it's just totally Roger Dean.
Yeah, I mean, do you think these people just came out of the blue? Oh yeah, let's have floating, islands. No, they definitely were into his artwork.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, fast forward. Let's get up to talk about Psycho Mesh.
So Psycho Mesh isn't. Psycho Mesh is nothing to do with me.
Oh,
right. This has come up once before. So Psycho Mesh is a band, a Liverpool band that I was watching one night in a kind of sort of a pub cum wine bar in Liverpool that was very important to the sort of the music scene. And there was the band playing in the third room, we used to call it, one night. And I popped in, and they were called Psycho Mesh, and they were a little bit like Susie and the Banshees, a bit too much like Susie and the Banshees. They were good, they were good players, but they were a bit too influenced by Susie and the Banshees. But the guitarist I thought was amazing, very, very young. He looked like a schoolboy, very, very young. I was a bit naughty of me, really, but I took him aside when he came off stage and said, "Look, if ever you," and Paul Simpson, I don't know whether you heard of him. I've just left the Teardrop Explodes. If you ever fancy doing any music together, and he gave me his phone number, which was quite naughty of him, considering he was in another band. And we had a couple of rehearsals together. And nothing came of it. For whatever reason, nothing really came of it. We rehearsed a few times in this Hindu center. It was a bizarre place. But as I say, nothing came of it until a year later. I was putting together a proto Wild Swans, and I rang him and he came down, and that's it. So that's a guy called Jeremy. He was then called Jeremy Kelly. He's now called Jim Kelly.
Yeah, Jim Kelly.
But I don't know where that's like a mesh thing. It must be online somewhere.
It's online somewhere, and again,
it's not actually. I was nothing to do with it.
You can't believe everything. Hopefully, this is accurate.
Okay.
Industrial Domestic with Will Sargent.
With Will Sargent, later Rebecca on the Bunnyman. So Will and I were at school together. So we weren't big mates in schok for at least for the first 3 years of what in the UK we call secondary school, high school in the US. He was a friend of Les Pattinson, who went on to become the original bass player, right? And Les and I had been friends since the age of 4. We lived nearby. So he was a friend of Les, Will. But one day, I don't know whether this was a thing in America, but in the UK, pre-punk, it was very fashionable it was considered cool, although it doesn't sound it now, to carry an album under your arm at all times, right?
Yeah, right.
So you would go to school with an album under your arm. But I'm going to say not everyone did this. This was just the guys with longer hair who were into music. So I would think very carefully about what album I was taking into school. So as I mentioned earlier, I was a big Bowie fan, but I was also a Roxy music fan because Bowie and Roxy in the UK were kind of joined at the hip. They showed people that you had an arty mind. You weren't just a longer kind of status quo fan.
It was a way to outwardly show your your affinities for music, and people would see you riding on the bus or whatever. And I've heard stories like that.
Yeah. So it was like a piece of clothing.
Yeah.
You know, it was like or a badge you would wear.
A
It's like
badge.
it told people who you were. So I was walking around the kind of you know, the common areas of the school at lunchtime with this album under my, and I remember it was Brian Eno's first Frippin' Eno, No Pussyfooting. It had just come out that week. It was weird as anything. 2 tracks, 1 per side, you know. Wow, you know, what the hell is this? You know? So so I had that under my arm, and I saw this guy, Will Sargent, who I kind of knew he was a friend of Les, didn't know him too well. And I sidled over to him quite kind of nervously, you know, and, you know, sort of both looking at my figure, all right, all right. And Will had an album under his arm, and it had a picture of a cow on it. And I said to him, "Oh, what's that?" And he said, Atom Heart Mother. And I said,
I was going to.
I said, who's that?
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, no, that's the name of the album. The band's called Pink Floyd. And I went, who are they? You know,
Who is that?
or who's he? You know,
Yeah,
and,
right.
And I mean, I think obviously I used to buy the music papers. I must have known who Pink Floyd were, but I don't. That's my memory. And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's Eno from Roxy Music." And he said, "Oh, I quite like Roxy Music." And I said, "Oh, it's Fripp as well from King Crimson." And he went, "Oh, cool." Yeah. So we swapped albums for the night. I said, "Well, if you want to borrow this for the night, I'll take yours home." And then we buddied up. Then we became friends. So Will lived a few miles away from me, but I would go over there sometimes. And I remember going for the first time, and I was devastated to find he had a bigger record collection than me, because I thought I was the kind of the head, the cool guy. You know?
Yeah.
And Will had a much heavier record collection than me. It was Zeppelin, the Groundhogs, Sabbath, Deep Purple, and I had a bit of that stuff. I had 3 Sabbath albums and stuff, so we had common ground. You know, I was a bit kind of into artier stuff than Will, but we both influenced each other. And I thought, well, if he likes it, it must be good. And if he likewise, so we started hanging out together. I'm finally answering your question now. We started hanging out together, and I for my 13th birthday, I'd asked my dad for an electric guitar, and he bought me one, but he said, "Well, this is for your birthday and Christmas because it's expensive." By expensive, it was £13.
One gift for
13 pounds, but it was a guitar, 1 pickup, a K, you know, the Japanese guitars with terrible action, you know.
Yeah.
A shaped lyre shaped, you know, the psychedelic looking one, sunburst finish. But for £13, you got the guitar, a plastic practice amplifier, like it weighed nothing, a lead strap, a book on how to play, a plectrum, and a record that was called Putting Together Your Own Rock Band Now. And it told you how to do it. So what you need a drummer. He keeps the beat.
Yes.
Then you need a bass. He keeps the bass of the music together, you know. And I used to listen to this endlessly, you know. And I couldn't play. There was no instructions on how to tune the guitar. It just said you tune. This is the A string. This is the E string. But I thought, well, how do I?
Well, what string is what? Yeah.
Yeah. You know. So Will and I joked today. We still don't know how to tune it. But
the gimmicks that they had.
So Will and I decided we were going to start a band. So we only had 2 guitars, and he bought a drum machine, which became the drum machine that became Echo, that became the Echo and the Bunnyman. So the reason why you've never heard Industrial Domestic, and the world has never heard Industrial Domestic, is because we've got the tapes, but we won't release them. And every year, Will and I get together, and we listen to them again and go, "Hey, should we put this stuff out? You know, it'd be great to put it out." And then we listen to it, and we decide that it's not as good as people think it's going to be. So why spoil the legend? You know?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about going back and then remaking?
Yeah. Doing new stuff under that name. Yeah. We have, and eventually, probably when Echo and the Bunnymen finally finally
call it a day.
dissolved, we might do it.
Yeah.
Speaking of accountability, so you mentioned you're a crossword fiend.
Yes. Yes.
Ian McCulloch is the
Oh,
world's most
oh,
obsessive crossword fiend.
is he? Wow.
He's really, really good at
He's
it.
really into that.
He's
Okay.
very bright.
Well, see, I learned that from my mother. She died at 91 just last year.
Wow.
So she lived,
Oh, wow.
and up until 2 or 3 years prior to her death, she was very sharp. She played bridge, the card game. That's one thing
Yes,
that
yes.
kept her. But she also worked crossword. So, to keep the mind active, and that kind of,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I've learned that from her. I've never picked up bridge, but
Yeah.
I do like to work my crossword. Well,
Yeah. I'm not great at doing things that are good for my mind. I'm really good at doing things that are actively bad for my mind.
oh, no, I
Like
went through
drinking in the afternoon.
I went through that spell years ago. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Ian, segue into my next question. A shallow madness. Uh,
Right.
with
Okay. So
Julian and Ian. Yeah.
yeah, I'll try and be concise and quick about this because I realize we'll be on for
Okay.
3 hours if we don't.
Okay. All right.
So okay, a shallow madness was so I'd met Julian and Liam McCulloch at that very famous Liverpool punk club, Eric's. We hung out together, and then I think Julian thought it would be good. Why don't we form a band? It was just a given that Ian was going to be our singer because he acted like he was already famous. Ian,
Before he
we didn't
was.
know
Yes. Yeah.
we didn't know he could sing.
Right. Right. Hey,
But
attitude is half the battle, right?
yeah, he walked around with a huge ego as if
Right.
he
Right.
he was already famous. So we thought, okay, he's going to be the singer. Julian had a bass and could play. He told us he could anyway. Um, I could play the guitar, but really not very well. So Julian said, "Why don't you be the keyboard player?" Because he just discovered the Doors at the time, and he thought we should
Oh, yeah.
kind of that would be an influence. So I bought a 60s kind of, or it wasn't a 4 it was an octave shorter and a lot cheaper. It was 40 pounds second hand.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool. It had an on-off button and a vibrato button, and that was it. I couldn't play very sorry, but we were all big fans of The Fall. The Manchester band The
Right.
Fall, Marky Smith. So
Marky.
they came to Liverpool quite early on in 19 late 70s, early 70s, and we loved them and like really loved them. We just responded to the simplicity of it somehow and their anti-rock clothing and stuff. So they became a big influence on us, and Marky Smith kind of became our friend and was supportive of us. So I'm kind of really was copying the full simplistic keyboard lines really because it was easy, and effective. So we used to rehearse once a week, just on Saturday kind of mornings in a friend's flat. But Ian, if he turned up at all, didn't sing. He just stood there kind of at the microphone telling us how rubbish the songs were. He was very negative, and we kept making excuses for him. Oh, well, write some lyrics and come, sing next time. Oh yeah, oh well, and he never did. So we ended up having to let him go, which I'm not sure he ever forgave us for. But he wasn't singing, he just wasn't. So the following week we had a rehearsal, and Julian said, "So what are we going to do about a singer?" And we all went, "Oh, I don't know," And he said, "Well, why don't I do it?" And we all went, "You joke? You can't. Nah, you're not a frontman." And he proved us wrong.
Yeah.
So we went under the name of Shallow Madness for a couple of months. And then we got a guitarist in and changed our name to the Teardrop Explodes. And I discovered the name of Teardrop Explodes, and I got it famously from a Marvel comic.
Oh,
It was a
I've heard-
Daredevil. It was a Daredevil Marvel comic that someone had left behind in my flat. We used to rehearse in my
yeah.
flat. Yes, but again, moving forward quickly. So we recorded our first
Well,
EP together called
well, real
Sleeping
quick,
Gas.
real quick,
Yeah.
before
Sorry,
that,
Bob.
no, that's
Yeah.
right. I just want a quick question. Who were the crucial three?
Well, so this is another one of those. The Crucial Three is a kind of myth. They weren't a real band. The
Right.
Crucial Three were friends. It was Pete Wiley, who went
Yeah.
on to become Wahi, Ian McCulloch, and Julian Cope. And they had one rehearsal in Pete Wiley's mum's house, and where they just talked about how great they were going to be, really.
Yeah.
And then said, we're the I think Pete said, we're the Crucial Three,
Yeah.
So that's what that is. It's not a real band. It's one of those kind of things, but it's it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And I really Pete Wiley and I didn't see. We didn't really ever talk. We didn't really hit it off. I got the feeling he didn't like me. I think he thought I was a sort of a David Bowie wannabe clothes horse, somebody who looked good but had no substance. And I kind of, because Pete was the sort of guy who'd wear a biker jacket with a collar up and a quiff,
Yeah.
and I was kind of like, well, that revolution's already been fought.
Yeah.
That's the 50s,
The
So
green
we so, yeah, the rocker look kind of thing, which I've done myself. It's a cool look.
Yeah.
So, and it's a shame because I really like him,
Yeah.
and I like what he does. It's kind of he's one of the few. Pete's music is very powerful, and instant. He can write a killer tune sort of stuff in a way I can't. So so yeah, that's the Crucial Three. So the
Yeah.
Crucial kind of, if they existed at all, it was one weekend just before Shallow Madness formed.
Yes. The legend has lasted, though. Yeah.
It's like Industrial Domestic. It's not a real
Yeah.
group, but the legend sounds great, so we'll
Yes,
run with it.
it does sound great. Well,
Yeah.
okay. We'll move on to Teardrop Explodes. Of course, Ian went off to found the Echo and the Bunnyman, and then you and Julian, Teardrop Explodes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we recorded an EP, a 4-track EP, but one of the tracks got rubbed off. So it became a 3-track EP called Sleeping Gas.
How did that happen? What?
The engineer who ran the studio didn't realize we needed the 4th track. So because he had another, what it's like, it's a cheap studio in Liverpool. They had another band coming the next day, and they just record over anything that you didn't buy.
Oh God, okay.
So he rubbed over the 4th track, and it was the best thing we ever did, I think. It was called Seeing Through You, and I played a solo with my elbows on the keyboard.
Yeah.
It was just chaos. It was very Peruba, and I'm devastated it doesn't exist. So we recorded that. It got single of the week in the 2 biggest Melody Maker and New Musical Express in the UK, and they rave reviewed it. Sounds like 96 Tears, Mark of the Mysterian. Sounds like Pushing Too Hard or whatever. I can't remember, some psych things. So Julian was delighted. So we existed. But so fast forward, I don't know, 5 months. I don't know. We're going back into the studio to record the second single. And the press are kind of like the Teardrop Explodes, so the band most likely to from Liverpool, getting a little bit of a buzz. But I don't like the song we're going to record. It's got a kind of stagger in it, one of those sort of Bacharach-y kind of da 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 bam 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 da da bam. But it kind of just repeated too often for me, and it was called Bouncing Babies. And I'd loved of foundation kind of influences, Perubu and the Four, and this was. I think Julian probably was listening to The Doors intently at this point, and particularly Touch Me. the TV appearance with the
Yes.
which is fantastic. It is brilliant. I knew it was brilliant, but it didn't feel right to me.
Right, right.
And I was
A little too a little too bombastic, maybe, you know. Yeah.
a little bombastic and not powerful enough lyrically or something. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So so Julian and I were walking through town as we did endlessly, just walking around aimlessly, going to record shops, talking, having pots of tea. And I voiced it. He said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm just not really feeling Bouncing Babies as a single, and I just feel like we've lost a bit of the edge we started with." And because I'd hurt his feelings, because Julian had predominantly written that song on his own, as far as I can remember, I don't quite remember. I'm not sure I had any input into it really. His feelings were hurt, so he said, "So why don't you leave the band then?" So I said, "Okay, then I will."
Okay.
And then we just carried on walking through town, had a cup of tea, and stayed friends. So I'd left the group, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do now? And so Bill Drummond, later of the KLF, he ran Zoo Records, which I should have mentioned earlier, that had put Sleeping Gas EP and Bouncing Babies out.
Right.
He came around to my flat when he heard the news that I'd left the band, begging me to stay. And I thought, oh, well, I don't want to be persuaded back, because it's not going to make any. I'm still going to be recording that song tomorrow that I'm not keen on. So he said, "So why?" He's from Scotland, so Simo, he used to call me, Paul Simpson. Simo. So why are you leaving the band? And I thought, I've got to say something intelligent. I can't just say I don't like the song. So I said, I'm going to start my own band. I'm going to be the singer, and we're going to have 2 guitars, bass, drums, and kind of string synth. Like, we're going to be like a kind of English television. And Bill's mouth fell open and went, "That sounds great. Do that."
He liked that.
So then I had to do it.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was kind of forced into doing that,
Yeah.
So again, I'm moving quickly. I answered, and I thought, how am I going to do this? I had a friend who'd taken my place in the Teardrop Explodes as keyboard player. We'd done a job swap, actually.
Oh, okay.
He was working in a cafe opposite Eric's night, the club, and we did a job swap. I took his job in the cafe, and he joined the Teardrops because he could play the piano. He was a better keyboard player than me. So he took, but it didn't last very long for whatever reasons I don't quite know. He didn't last long in the Teardrops. He did 1 tour with them, I think, and a few, maybe a John Peel session. And then he was off to art college. So we were writing to each other. He was up in Edinburgh, and we were saying we should form a band together. We've got far more in common. We share, we've got more affinity than anyone else in the city. So he said, "Well, I'm back in September. I'm back in Liverpool. Let's do it then." I thought, I can't wait till September, because this is like February, So I answer an advert in Probe Records on the wall: "Band seeks singer." Something like drummer and bass player seek frontman or something for new band into Susan in the Banshees and Japan. Well, I quite liked it. I quite liked the Banshees. And Budgie was kind of an old Eric's kind of friend of mine, the drummer. But I didn't kind of listen to the music anymore, and I really didn't like Japan at all.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, because I was a David Bowie and Roxy fan. So what a Japan kind of well, we've been a Roxy cell taped together, aren't we? Really,
I have to say at this point that I prefer David's solo material to Japan. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I hear this a lot. When I say I don't like Japan, everyone goes, "Oh yeah, but you've got to listen to The Secret Life of Bees or whatever it's called, or
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
one of the solos. But
Yeah.
all I hear is someone impersonating Brian Ferry, who look while
Yeah,
looking
well,
like
yeah,
David Bowie.
a little bit of that echoes a
The
little bit.
ghosts of my love
Yeah,
are wetter
yeah.
than the wind. But I think, saying that, again, my partner Gemma, she was a big David Sylvian Japan fan. Oh no, you know, she was in love with him. So when she's played me stuff, I kind of get it. I can hear it through her eyes
Yeah.
and not through my kind of jaded old man eyes, you know.
Right, right.
And I really, I like. He seems like a really genuinely nice guy, and his brother Steve seems like a cool operator.
Yeah.
So it's my loss, not theirs. I think, you know.
Okay.
So
You
anyway,
took-
I rehearsed with these guys. Neither of them could play very well, but they looked the part.
looked
You
apart.
know, they looked quite good, and that was quite important to me, being a Bowie Roxy man. You know, so that became the genesis. Then when Jed came back to Liverpool in September, we had a couple of rehearsals, wrote a few songs, and then I remembered, oh, I'll get that guitarist I rehearsed with. We weren't that good together. That was my fault because I couldn't play my guitar as good as he could. We didn't quite get it together, but I knew he would be right for this. So he came down to rehearsals, and that was bing, you know, oh, you know, God's finger comes
Yes.
down. Oh, the Wild Swans
All
is
the
born,
lights
you
went
know.
on. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So yes, so the Wild Swans, Bill Drummond again. Actually, it wasn't Bill.
Where did the name come from first?
Well, listen, I can't honestly remember. But my mother told me that I told her when I was 12 I was going to have a group called the Wild Swans, but I doubt that somehow, you know. And my mum's not around anymore to verify that.
Yeah.
But I don't. It wasn't. People presume it's the Yeats poem, The Wild Swans. I'm in Dublin. Yeats is complete. But I think it was the fairy story, The Wild Swans. And I think here's the reality. So in Liverpool at the time, so we'd had the Teardrop Explodes, we've had orchestral maneuvers in the dark, we had all these names, Flock of Seagulls, these long, unwieldy, kind of stupid names. And then I think then there was a little kind of reaction against that, where bands would have one very short word for a name, not just from Liverpool, from everywhere. Blurt, gel, those sort of names. And I thought, no, I want something that represents beauty and sensitivity and kind of poetry. So I don't know, the Wild Swan seemed like it's at the name at the time, it seemed like a good idea, you know. I still quite like it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. It's lasted. It has, you know.
Well, it's I think it's kind of classic, you know.
Yeah.
It's a sort of a classic sort of name. It's not pretentious. It's not
Right.
silly. It's yeah. Anyway, so that's that.
You-
Bill Drummond knew we existed, but he didn't offer us to put a single out by us. But Pete de Freitas, if I can remember, the drummer, the young drummer, who was my flatmate at the time. He'd just got his first royalties from the Bunnymen. So Crocodiles had come out and been a bit of a success. And then I think Heaven Up Here was about to come out, but he just got his first royalty check in anyway. And he said, I'll pay for the Wild Swans to go into the studio. So I booked this 16-track studio for 6 hours on Monday. You know, that's what we're talking about. So we've got the 6 hours, we rehearse, and then maybe the day before, our drummer, Justin, he refused. I give him a knock on his door. He lived next door to me. I said, Justin, we're in the studio tomorrow. You ready? And he refused to answer the door. He just sort of locked himself in the flat. And he wouldn't, I don't know, I still to this day don't know what happened, but he didn't want anything to do with it.
Okay.
Go figure, you know, as you Americans say. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Pete, when we got to the studio, I said, Pete, Justin's not coming. And he said, why? I said, no idea. He said, okay, let's get a taxi down to the Bunnymen's rehearsal room, the ministry, and I'll bring my drum kit. So we had a few run-throughs with Pete. So Justin, the drummer that never came, was a good drummer, but Pete was in another league.
Yeah.
You know, just technically as a drummer, but also he was fresh off touring, so he just added dynamics that we didn't have. And of course, any band, you raise your game to the best musician in the band.
Yes. Yes.
It makes everyone a better player. It makes the bass player a better player.
That's right.
So in a way, although it breaks my heart that I lost a friend and my bandmate, it was fortuitous.
It worked out in the end. Yeah.
Well, because it's got, you know, it was accidentally recorded in mono, as you probably know. We don't know why, but it had some magic to it. John Peel played it. I mean, I say in the book, he literally played it to death. He played it regularly.
You're speaking of Revolution.
Revolution Spirit. He played it regularly, and it's B-side. We did PL sessions and stuff.
Right.
Everything was going very well for the Wild Swans.
Yeah.
We had interest.
One more question.
Yeah. Sorry.
Who came up with the logo for Wild Swan? Okay.
So that logo is created by a guy called Martin Atkins, who used to do the covers for the late Zoo Records, and went on to do the layout for the Burning Man and the Teardrop Explodes when they went onto major labels. So he's a kind of unsung hero of that scene, really. It wasn't the cover we wanted, but it's timeless in the way the cover we wanted wouldn't have been. So it was the right thing to do, and I still use that logo today on when I repress T-shirts and stuff. You know, it's simplicity itself. I used to think it looked like an airline. You know, a sick bag you'd get on an airline under your seat.
Right.
I used to think it looked like that. I now realize it's actually a classic bit of design.
I was going to say you could have done something like "Come Fly with the Wild Swans," right?
Yeah. Oh, the record company probably tried that one.
Yeah, right. Well, fast forwarding a little bit, Care, how did you and Ian hook up?
Well, this is really interesting because today, so it's, what time is it here?
It's 7?
It's 5 p.m. here, 1700 hours.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, it's 5 p.m. here. So until 4 p.m. today, just before we came online, I'd been compiling a double Care album because it was a stillborn project. So here's what happened. So the Wild Swans Mark I disintegrated. And without getting into too much about that, it's in my book. I was kind of betrayed by my bandmates, really, and they didn't sack me. I used to suffer from depression, quite serious depression, undiagnosed. I didn't take anything.
Yeah.
And I used to have little episodes where I'd have to remove myself from the city. So I would take myself often. You could buy very cheap tickets to Paris or Amsterdam or Berlin in those days. You know, they're called Transalpino tickets, £23, and you could use any public transport within any of those 3 cities for up to a month. It was amazing. So I took myself off to Holland on this occasion for a week or two to exercise it. Yeah. So I could come back all fresh. Anyway, when I came, but I should have explained that to them. That's the important point. I should have explained that to them. Anyway, so I came back from Amsterdam, late 82, and there was a letter waiting for me from the bank. Now, the Wild Swans had a bank account. They only had £300 in it, which was money that Warner Brothers Publishing had given us. Because after Revolutionary Spirit, they thought we were going to be, you know, a big band. So we signed this publishing deal with £300, nothing is it? So there was a letter from the bank saying, just to let you know that we have, as instructed, we closed the Wild Swans bank account. So I rang my bandmates and said, why have you closed the bank account? And they said, well, to buy a pair of shoes for Peter Coyle. And I said, Peter Coyle, the singer in another band. well, then was the
You
singing
would
band called the Jazz Babies.
okay.
And they said yes. And I said, why? And they said, because he's our new singer. Well, it's my band.
You
I'd
thought,
handpicked them.
right.
I'd put this vision together, and they'd gone to the record label that were going to sign the Wild Swans and taken the record deal. They'd taken a song I'd co-written with them called Opium and rewritten it as The First Picture of You and got a deal with it and had a big hit with it.
Yeah.
So, so
wow.
you can imagine what that would do to a young man suffering from depression anyway.
Right.
So I couldn't talk about it. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my girlfriend who I was living with at the time. Couldn't tell anyone. I was too embarrassed. I was too humiliated. So that was a huge thing. So your question was how I came to working with Ian Broudie. So when I finally surfaced from the kind of abyss I'd fallen into, I thought I'm going to do some demos because Simon Potts, the NR guy at Arista, who signed the Lotus, was going to sign me. He was going to sign the Wild Swans, and so I'm going to do some demos for him that he paid for. So I borrowed a Porter studio, you know, the old cassette
Yes, I do. I remember
4-track things. You know, that if you were clever, you could 8-track. From Ian McCulloch for a weekend. I wrote 4 songs very quickly on the guitar and recorded and demoed them. Now, the thing with me is I can come up with intricate parts, but I can't play them very well. So I thought, I'll take Will Sargent had moved round the corner to me. So I took the whole machine up the avenue to Will, knocked on his door, didn't ring him or anything. I just knocked on the door. Hey, Will, can you play this part on this track for me? He said, all right. But he couldn't, and that's not to say Will's not an amazing guitarist. It just wasn't his kind of thing. It was like an arpeggio thing, you know, it wasn't Will's bag, you know. But he said, well, I'll get Ian to play. And I said, who's Ian? He said, oh, Ian Broudie, he's in the flat next door. Well, I knew Ian from Eric's. He was on stage with Big in Japan. But we'd never really spoken. We knew each other to nod to in the street. That was it. So Ian came in and played it in 2 seconds.
Did he? Okay.
And then he said, well, will you do me a favor? You're a singer, aren't you? I've written this song called Tall Ships. Will you sing on my demo? So I said, well, I'll give it a go, Ian. But I've got to be honest with you. I find it impossible singing other people's melodies and lyrics. I've never been able to do cover versions because of that. I just can't.
Right.
Melody doesn't kind of go.
Yeah,
I don't know
throughout history how singers could do that unless they wrote it themselves. You're right.
Yeah, you know. So, but that, you know, some real proper great musicians can do anything musical. I can't. So, I took it home, and then it was pre-email, I guess. I must have phoned Ian and said, look, I'm struggling with this, Ian. The only way I could do it is I could write my own words. You know, and come up with a new melody. And he said, well, okay, try that then, which is really weird now I think about it. Weird me asking and weird him saying it was okay. So I did it. And I wrote this song called My Boyish Days. I didn't write it. I turned Ian's song into something else called My Boyish Days with a completely different melody and gave him the cassette of me singing it, just naked in a room. Into a cassette mic. There was no reverb or anything, you know. Okay, so let's imagine that was on a Friday night. On Monday morning, there's a knock on my door and it's Bill Drummond. Paul, I've got you a record deal. And I went, Bill, what do you mean? He said, Simon Potts at Arista. And I said, God, well, I knew Simon was interested in me. He said, no, it's not you. It's you and Ian Broudie.
You and Ian, okay.
And I said, but we're not a band. And he said, you are now. and you know what? I couldn't really, although it wasn't where my kind of heart was at, I couldn't really argue with it because, you know, this is the UK during Margaret Thatcher's kind of reign of terror. I'm getting £23 a week from government kind of unemployment benefit. I'm eating baked beans out of a can. you know, and all of a sudden it's like, as £40,000, Paul, it's
And
been
I was going to say,
suspended.
you're
You know?
basically like nothing or something, which do you want to be?
Exactly. Nothing or something. Which do you want to
Yeah,
be? So,
yeah.
so we went for it, but that kind of explains why we didn't see it quite through, because it wasn't organic. It wasn't.
Okay.
Ian and I weren't friends that had met in a basement and practiced for
You
years.
didn't see him. You didn't see him carrying his albums, you know, and things like that.
No,
You know?
no. So we
Yeah,
didn't really know each other, you know.
right.
I like Ian very much. He's proved himself many times over with the Lightning Seeds and everything else. He's
Well,
all the hit albums he's
yeah,
produced.
let me ask you
Yeah.
about back then. Was he not confident enough in his own vocal abilities because
No,
he was looking?
he'd only sung with, he was in a band called the Original Mirrors briefly.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I think he'd sung a couple of tracks on their albums, but just like one song in each album or something. No, he wasn't confident at all in his vocals. He wasn't confident in at all generally, full stop. He was quite a shy person, as I was, but I had a kind of swagger because I was into my clothes and stuff. But Ian was quite subdued, really, but quietly. You know, he had the chops, as you said earlier. I didn't have the chops. He had the chops. So to cut a long story short, Ian did the bulk of the donkey work in that band, if it was a band, in that duo. Ian would bring songs to me fully formed often. Oh, well, he'd bring me the music, and I would supply the lyrics and the melodies to that music, and I might suggest that we move a verse or a chorus around because I couldn't make it fit, you know. And Ian, because he was more musical than me, he would write kind of bridges and middle eights that kind of were like, oh my God, you know,
yeah,
beyond my musical ken, you know.
yeah.
So, but to cut a long story short, I wasn't kind of, I was still depressed about what had happened to my band, the Wild Swans, especially because the Lotus Eaters had a huge hit with the first Victory of You.
One of
That
your,
hurt me.
yeah,
Well,
right.
I'd certainly written the chorus,
Yeah,
you know, and it's not lost on me. It was their only hit record, you know. So, or certainly in the UK. And I really, the thing is, I really like Peter. This is not to decry Peter Coyle at all, because I really liked the Jazz Babies, his previous band, and I think that was a bit of a tragedy that they didn't get their moment. You know, their Peel session's fantastic. So anyway, and also Peter he wasn't in on it. He didn't know. So as far as he's
right.
concerned, these songs he were presented with were new songs written for him. He didn't know they were Wild Swans songs that were done on John Peel sessions and things.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he's innocent in that.
yeah,
Anyway. So Ian and I made 3 singles, which
yeah.
I like. And then we were recording an album in London with kind of string quartets on and all kinds of stuff. But my depression had come back, and I thought, this isn't where my heart is. It's fine, but it's not where my heart is. Why am I doing it? Because if I finish this album, I'm going to have to go promote it and possibly go on television and sing this stuff. You know, because we were a band that had money behind us. We were going to be the next,
Yeah.
you know.
You weren't really feeling it. You weren't really feeling it.
And I'm not feeling it at all. And if I'm not sure, because Ian and I have never spoken about this, but I'm not sure Ian was either.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't quite, I wasn't quite committing to it, and he could feel that.
He could feel, yeah.
So that was affecting his experience as well, you know.
Well,
So it's completely changed now. As I mentioned earlier, I'm having to reassess all that material now for a double album release.
yeah.
And I'm listening to it now going, what was wrong with me? This is actually really fantastic.
Right.
If anything's wrong with it, it's me spoiling it by not embracing it fully enough at the time. Anyway, so
you mentioned the 3 singles, and my favorite, and perhaps most fans, is Flaming Sword.
Yeah, which was the hit of the 3 singles.
Yes.
So My Boyish Days, and I don't work in the one hits and flops. That's record company speak.
Right.
80s major label record company speak. But as far as they were concerned, My Boyish Days was a flop single. And that's the one they spent all the money on. Videos and all that kind of stuff. Flaming Sword, they were hedging their bets, so they didn't do a video, and then bloody hell, it starts getting played on the radio every morning. Single of the week, you know.
Right. It just shows you that you don't always have to have the promotion behind songs for them.
Exactly. And then the third single, which is my favorite, Whatever Possessed You.
Okay, that's nice.
Sold nothing at all, you know. Got no radio play. We did get a TV. We did do some TV for that. Right. So the record company were really confused, you know.
Right. What do we do?
Yeah, and then I walked in. I'm quite ashamed of it now, but I walked away from the Care album before it was finished. What I didn't know was that Ian finished it without me.
Okay.
And by finished, I mean he finished. He supplied finished masters to the record company for an album that there was no point in putting out if there's no band around to promote it. But I didn't know it had been finished, and for me it couldn't be finished because some of the vocals were guide vocals; they weren't finished vocals. I hadn't even assigned titles to the songs. So eventually, I don't know, 10 years later, a CD comes out of all that material. But it's really
Diamonds and Emeralds.
Yeah, well, that title isn't one of mine. I would never call it Diamonds and Emeralds, you know.
Well,
it's too cheesy.
I have to tell you, though, I did get a copy of it. And I do really like Love, Crowns, and Crucifix.
Well, that's the title track of the double album.
Okay.
That's my favorite.
Yes.
So it's got a sort of Jacques Brel kind of quality to it. You
know?
Yeah. There was some good stuff on there, and we're trying to find the gold inside it, inside that stuff. So basically, I walked out of that project, which was very cowardly. I wrote Ian a letter and just walked out, which was really cowardly of me. And it had financial implications for both of us. But, you know, I'm 23 and I'm depressed and I don't, you know.
How are you two now? You still on good terms?
We're okay. We go through our phases of not talking to each other for years. And we didn't speak after Care for a long, long time. But then we did, and then beautifully, just before COVID, 2019, just before COVID, I bumped into Ian in the street, and I was, you know, I thought, oh God, it's Ian. Oh, yeah, hi, Ian. You know, and he gave me a big hug, took me back to his rehearsal rooms around the corner, where he was rehearsing for a Jollification anniversary tour. You know, he's had all this success since then. Yeah. So, which naturally he's a lot more confident now in himself. And he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Nothing." He said, "Do you want to get up on stage with me?" Because he's playing with the Likeness in Liverpool. Well, Care never played live. We never played live. So him asking me was two things. It was a massive sign to me that he'd forgiven me. And two, it was a sort of a healing for me because I thought, oh God, I don't have to carry this guilt anymore, you know. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I got up on stage and no one knew it was going to happen. He just, you know, halfway through this set, he just went, "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you know, this next song is an oldie. It is, you know, the original singer Paul Simpson," and the audience couldn't believe it. Because you know, and right. I wasn't great. I was okay because we hadn't really rehearsed, you know. Right. But it was okay, but it meant the world to me.
Yes.
That he asked me to do it. It meant the world to me.
Right.
So you know, and if he was outside now, we'd hug each other. You know, I don't see him. You know.
Right. Exactly.
But all of that Care stuff, that was my fault. None of it was Ian's fault. He was the brains. I was the pretty boy idiot, you know.
Yeah, you know, because I didn't know all the ins and outs like you're sharing right now. So going into this, I was really going to try and tiptoe a little bit around that and say I didn't know if there were still hard feelings. I didn't know. You know. you know.
That might, Ian might have some buried ones, but I think
Yeah,
we're good. We both wrote books
yeah,
about
right,
and wrote about that period quite fondly,
right, right.
which I wasn't expecting. Certainly wasn't expecting Ian to do. And this Care album that's going to come out is also, a bit of a statement publicly that we're okay with it.
When is it? When will it be
Not
released?
sure. Late autumn, I would imagine,
Okay, all right, all
because
right.
we're just sequencing it and trying to find is that the actual definitive version of that song? And hang on a minute, what's that demo there with Peter Freitas playing on it? Should that go on?
Right, right.
We're looking
Okay.
for extras.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Back to Wild Swans.
Yeah.
Mark II.
Okay, so I'll tell
Yes.
if you don't mind, I'll just bash in because I'm worried we're going to run out of time.
Sure, sure.
Yes. So after Kerr, I'm lost again for a bit. What am I going to do now? I realize that I'm a bit of a kind of liability to the industry. I've got a reputation as being someone who quits bands. In my head, I'm a perfectionist, but I realize that the industry perceived me as someone who doesn't see things through. And oh, that's not a good place.
Yeah.
So I thought I went on holiday. My sister was living in Cyprus at the time, so I went over to stay with her. I'd grown my hair really long,
Yeah.
as a kind of reaction against the Wild Swans and everything the Wild Swans had been. And the sun bleached it white in the Nicosia heat. It bleached it white. I looked mad, I looked like a crazy hippie. So I thought, what am I going to do? I thought that the clever thing to do would be to reform the Wild Swans. Not with the original members, and create a new band using my name, the Wild Swans.
Yes.
So I get back to Liverpool with that in mind. And weirdly, like Kismet, the day I get back, I walk into town and the first person I bump into is Gerrard Quinn, the keyboard player in the original Wild Swans, and who had been in the Lotus Eaters but had left after the first Picture of You single.
Yes.
Because he's a painter, he's an artist, he wanted to do that. And I told him, he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to reform the Wild Swans. So he immediately went and rang Jem Kelly, the original guitarist, and they got me in a kind of pincer movement and said, hey, if you're going to do this, why don't you do it with us? Because we were great and we never realized our potential. And I thought they're kind of right. So can I swallow my pride and my hurt vanity and take them back? Yes, I can. If it's to fulfill the dream.
Right.
So, which is what I did. So, but of course, the musical landscape changed drastically.
Yeah.
By this point, so we're talking 1985, 6. So, kind of the producer is king now. The record producer is more important than the band now. Big snare drums are in fashion. Dance music, pre-house music, is playing its part. Everything's changed. Joy Division have turned into New Order. New Order have turned into from an indie rock band to a kind of electronic dance almost band. Everything's changing. The landscape's changed. So we thought we needed to change as well, which was a bit of a mistake. And so just staying classic, we kind of started. We didn't go the dance route, but we kind of streamlined our sound. It got less complicated and less classically influenced, less dynamics and more kind of basically, as I put in my book, we forgot to be magnificent.
Okay. This is one of my favorite albums.
America loves that album far more than the UK do. The UK think it's a little bit over the top, a little bit guitar heavy, a little bit bombastic. Yeah.
Really?
So that's not, I'm not denying your your
right.
opinion. I'm just
I think
saying
I think it's just the combination of the lyrics and the music for me that makes the album. Okay, the spiritual overtones. Uh,
yeah,
you know,
but again,
they
I,
speak to
I
me. I think they
I
speak
know
to us.
I know what you're saying, but I
Yeah,
also there's something about
yeah,
that spiritual thing that got misinterpreted in the UK. People
yeah.
thought we were born in a Christian group,
Christian. Okay.
and that was never my
No, no.
intention. I'm spiritual. I'm
I
not.
don't think it's not heavy-handed at all. I don't hear that. I don't hear
The
that. You know?
Smurf was pretty heavy-handed.
I mean the lyrics. I'm talking. Yeah, well,
Oh
that's
yes, I
yeah.
see what you mean. Yeah,
But the lyrics
yeah.
myself, you know, I think they could be applied across the board, just in a spiritual context. You know, there's a
Okay, that's interesting. That's
a common thread through most
yeah.
religions. I think that you know you
I think I tried because all the Mark I Wild Swans is deeply Old Testament kind of
yeah,
imagery.
right,
You know, it just is. I don't know where that came from.
yeah,
The
yeah,
second album, in simplifying it,
yeah, yeah.
the message got a bit. Uh, um, for me, it's less. It's a it's a failed project. That for me.
Okay. Well, I just want to go.
Yeah.
I want to tell you. I mean, there's not a, as you guys would say, a naff. There's not a naff track on the album, as far as my ears and
Oh, bless you.
my taste go. Of course, we got over here. It must have been on MTV, Young Manhood. That was the first single.
Yeah, that was the
Like,
kind of lead track.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, that's not one of my top picks. I wouldn't say.
No,
Uh,
not mine
no, no.
either.
Bitterness is one that I just love. I love the message again
Okay.
in that song. And then Archangels,
Mm,
again the spiritual overtones again, but not overtly religious. You know, I don't hear that, but that's another one
okay.
that I really like. And now Whirlpool Heart is the one that I have put on more mixtapes in my life and probably listened to more than any other on this CD. I really
Yeah.
like the guitar intro and the intro, and it's,
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, and then especially towards the end of the song with that echoey sound to it. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Whirlpool Heart. So I don't know whether you know, you probably do. The Wild Swans are big in the Philippines. You have a big Filipino following in America as well, because there's a huge Filipino kind of population
right.
in America. But when I go to the Philippines,
Yeah,
I always start the set with that because it's a kind of rocker, and I
yeah,
know
yeah,
it's instant, and
yeah,
I know
yeah.
it gets everyone out their seats immediately and down to the
Right,
front. You know,
right, right.
so why hang around? Why play this at the end when I could
Yeah, yeah. Now,
shortcut the adoration?
now this is interesting. Like you said, your take on it, and like you said, the UK impression with the album and ours, because I mean, it just shows the difference, you know, there. And I was kind of surprised. I thought you might be really proud of this album, but
No, no, it's a funny one, and there were other examples of it. So Aztec Camera, where he
yeah.
films
Oh
80s
yeah,
band.
yeah.
So I was on the same label as Roddy for a while, and there was an album called Love came out about 87 that was
Okay.
had all the big hits on it, Somewhere in My Heart and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
And the album I got the record sorry, the album for free from the record company. When I say free, I think I stole it
you stole
off someone's desk
it.
before it was
Well,
released. It was a promo copy.
well, it was free. It was free to you, right? It was free. It was free for you.
Yeah. So, and I absolutely loved it. But I thought, oh my God, this
Yeah.
is quite heavy.
Right.
Roddy's really changed. He's gone quite heavy. And then what I found out subsequently is it's the American album is completely different from the UK one. Same songs,
Yeah.
but completely different mix. They did a kind of guitar heavy version for American radio because American radio is huge. You know, college radio was huge in the 80s in America, as you know very well,
Right.
which wasn't a thing in the UK.
Yeah.
So, so I've been listening to what America was listening to. So in the UK, Roddy and Aztec Camera were kind of gentle to
Yeah.
sing your melodic thing. You're
Right.
very accomplished musically, but this was like a
Yeah.
stadium
Well,
rock album,
yeah.
you know.
Well, see, the thing is, I've always listened to the UK, the import versions.
Ah, okay.
So I've always liked the softer,
Yeah, yeah,
sounds,
yeah.
and
But yeah,
yeah,
it didn't from so Bring Home the Ashes
yeah,
didn't achieve what I wanted it to.
okay,
There's not enough epics on it. There's not enough dynamics. There's not enough
yeah.
slow songs on. The keyboard
Well,
player who'd left, Jed had left the band, so the keyboard it's predominantly a guitar record, whereas it
yeah,
used to be piano and
yeah.
guitar.
Right. Well,
So
Jim does a great job, I have to say. But anyway, getting back to the tracks on the album,
yeah,
there's like three more. Like I said, to me, they're all top tracks. Bringing Home the Ashes, more poppy. This is definitely a more poppy song, but again, great lyrics. The heart in the heart of England can never die. Uh,
yeah, yeah. I mean, Jem Kelly was a big part of those. You know, again, very often in those days, similar to Kerr, um, songs would be brought to me almost fully formed,
yeah,
and so I wasn't writing very bitterness was one of mine, but
yeah,
um, my role was more to say I would arrange them. I say, no, that's horrible, that bit, and lose that entirely. Start with that, start on that phrase, repeat that, then lose the bridge, go straight to the chorus. You know, that was what I did, kind of thing. And then I would go home, put a melody on top and lyrics, and then whoever I'm working with, be it Broudie or Jam Kelly or Gerrard Quinn, would change whatever chord they were playing to enhance my melody. So it is still co-writing. It's just, but a lot of it in those days it wasn't coming directly from me as it is. It became subsequently.
okay.
Yeah.
And then Now and Forever, another one I like. Count
Yeah.
Your Blessings, Now and Forever.
Yeah.
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 Amen. Amen. I like that, I think,
I went to when I was a little boy. I was sent because we moved to the countryside, middle of nowhere. There was only one school
hmm,
to go to. It was 200 years old, and it was attached to a church, literally, physically attached to a church. So church services were part of every day. But I had no context. I was only 4 because my birthday falls in June. I
yeah,
started school at the age of 4, not 5. So I had no context for any of this. So it was just imagery,
yeah,
flaming swords and angels and
yes,
stuff.
yes.
I didn't know what the hell any of it was,
when,
but
when,
it came out in my subconscious years later when I was writing words.
okay, when in June is your birthday, by the way? What day?
16,
Okay.
16. Yeah.
Gemini. Okay.
Yeah, Gemini.
Okay.
Oh, I'm such a Gemini, and I'm right in the middle of Gemini.
Okay.
Gemini's. I will have ideas. I've got this fantastic idea, and I'll tell everyone that I'm doing it. I've got this idea. I'm going to make this album. And it's called this and all that. Literally 2 weeks later, someone will say to me, "Oh God, what's happening with that album?" And I say, "What
Uh-huh.
album?" They go, "That album." They'll tell me and I'll go, "I've no idea what you're talking
You
about."
know,
I've
you know,
forgotten about it. I was so
you know,
enthusiastic, and I've just
right.
moved on
You
to
know who
something
you know
else.
who else is a Gemini, don't you? You know who else? Trump.
Oh,
What-
tell me.
That's when
Is he?
you
That would
said something
explain
about
a
like
lot.
the great ideas and the policies he has, and then he turns his back and
That would
he changes his
explain a lot.
what that explain. Oh, I'm sorry I went down that road.
No, it's
Uh,
okay.
well,
You've got to live with it more than I have.
yeah, you're right. That
Uh,
that's the real punishment right there. Well,
yeah.
I turned Wild Swans on to a few people back in the day. My best friend, who's since passed away, he would cry listening to The Worst Year of My Life,
Uh,
literally, and it
yeah.
touched me as well. And I know a lot of people that heard it. It really spoke to him, and I mean deeply. Beautiful guitar in that one also.
It's absolutely gorgeous, the guitar. I always felt like I hadn't quite done that song justice. I always thought instrumentally it required something more from the vocals, particularly on that chorus. It needed something more. So I always felt like I failed a little bit with that one.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was the most beautiful music.
Are you?
Gerrard come
Let
up
me
with.
ask you this: Are you a bit of a perfectionist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, as I said, I think I'm a perfectionist. Everyone else thinks I'm a quitter.
Okay. Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, you have to be really. It's like, so I've got another project coming out soon actually. It's an archival project, so I did a spoken word album in about 2005 called The Dream Diaries. So that's about to come out on vinyl for the first time ever. It was just a little CD project, new artwork. We've had to edit it into side one and side two because it was a continuous piece of music, and this is about the perfectionism thing. So I specified a particular shade of colored vinyl that meant something. It tied in with the artwork. I'll show you the artwork actually. Hang on.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is my. So I created these. These are
Oh wow.
these are collages I did. Yeah. So that's going to be there's no typography. So it's going to be sort of one side and then the other side sort of stuff. But I'd specified a particular kind of burgundy kind of a wine vinyl, and the pressing plant. They don't take these things quite as seriously as I do, so it's come back a different color, and I'm really literally. I mean, sleepless nights over this. Like, it's not the exact shade I envisaged in my head.
It's that saying, and if you had control over it, you could do it yourself. It's that old saying: if you want something done right, do it yourself. Right?
Yeah. Which of course I can't do.
You can't do that. Right.
So, but the poor guys from the record company kind of got their head in their hands because they can see I'm upset about it. Yes. But in the scheme of things, it's not that important. It's more important that the thing comes out.
Right.
So yeah.
I did want to say I have a copy of Space Flower, and I will tell you straight up, I did not like it as well as
why would you?
As the previous album.
Why would you? Because it's what Space Flower is a knee-jerk sort of biting my own nose off thing. Yeah. It's a reaction to to bringing home to what happened subsequently with Bringing Home the Ashes. So here's the deal: Seymour Stein of Sire Records signed us for a 2-album deal. Bringing Home the Ashes being the first one. We were scheduled to do a second album, right? Which would have been in a similar vein, but probably we would have thought, hang on a minute, it's not as good as we wanted. Let's go back to the original blueprint. But I had another kind of falling out with my bandmate over the Lotus thing. So I kind of sacked him, really. I let him go. Now, what I hadn't realized in sacking him, I'd broken contract with Sire. Oh, it wasn't really in my remit to sack anyone. Right. Yeah. So Seymour himself said, okay, the contract's null and void, but I will let you do demos and then I'll reconsider. So because my heart was broken again by the Wild Swans, the vision I'd had for it not coming to pass, I thought, right, well, F that. All those influences, the whole kind of, that whole particularly Northern English aesthetic, forget it. And I think I was very hurt, and consequently, I kind of retreated into myself. I physically moved into a new property, a new house, which was out of the town centre, the first time in my life I'd ever lived away from anyone. So no one was knocking on my door anymore. No friends were calling in. I kind of sat at home, kind of sucking my thumb,
Right.
depressed,
Sulking.
reading children's literature,
Yeah.
listening to childlike music that I liked when I was a little kid, the Lemon Pipers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that kind of I was listening to Bubblegum, Keith West, Tomorrow, the Pretty Things.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of that cusp where pop turned psychedelic. So I borrowed a Porter studio for Ian McCulloch, a newer one, a better one, than the last one, and I demoed some psychedelic, you know, and all the I thought I can't rent my shirt and so much show my soul to people anymore because look what it gets me. I just get betrayed. So I'll just respond to my circumstances. So I just started writing all this chocolate bubble, all this nonsense, really, kind of psychic. I'm a lighthouse, this sort of poor man's Sid Barrett, Scarecrow, you know, vegetable man type stuff.
Right.
So I demoed it, and then weirdly, I just made friends with Ian Broudie again. He came round to my flat, and I played him the demos, and he loved them. And went, "Oh my God, these are fantastic! Let me produce it."
Yeah. I could even see him doing some of that, like "I'm a Lighthouse," and his later material.
Well, it's not a million miles away from the lightning seeds, to be honest. It's very direct pop. You know, it's like in your face, pop. You know.
But I like in that you know, "I'm a Lighthouse," the analogies that you go through, and then you say "love melts inside us." I really like that.
Yeah, it's very naive. It's a very naive record, you know. And so I recorded that. Seymour loved the demos, and then he said, "Okay, I'll pay for the recording, but I'm not going to pay you all the lovely cash that I was going to pay." So that came out in America. They sat on it for a full year. I don't know why, and then eventually it came out in America. And again, it just confused people, really. But the scene in America changed at that point. Those few years, college radio wasn't quite king then. You know, things were changing in America. Dance music was hitting big in the UK. And I'd almost anticipated that with Melting Blue Delicious, but because they sat on it for a year, it looked like it was cashing in.
That Manchester scene and all
the Manchester scene. If it had come out on time, I'd have been ahead of the curve. But as it came out a year later, it sounded like it was catching up. They didn't release it in the UK for 18 years. Wow. 18 years. So so of course Wild Swans fans are just like, what the hell is this nonsense? Some people like it, some people.
Well, one track, "Immaculate." Now that sounds like
because it sounds like
it could have been on the previous album.
I get that quite a lot. That people like that one because it sounds like
it does sound.
And weirdly, that's probably the only track I play live today because it sounds like the Wild Swans. So I did that. Then my world collapsed. I lost my record deal. They thought Paul's kind of can't be trusted. I lost my record deal. I lost my publishing deal, so I was penniless. Wilderness, years. Got married, had a child. Decided to stop making instrumental music. I couldn't sing anymore. I thought I got nothing to say, and no one wants to hear it anyway. So I started making instrumental music under the name Skyray. Skyray, and that's weirdly, you know, when you stop trying, you get some success. Skyray started getting played on TV shows. It was like background music on travel shows and sports, football, goal of the month, you know. So that was weird. I did that for 10 years, but music had lost focus. Again, fast forward 2009, 2010, I make a new Wild Swans with a new band, all-star band, Ricky Mamie from the Brian Jonestown Massacre, Mike
Right.
Mooney from Spiritualized and the Psychedelic Furs. You know,
You're talking about The Coldest Winter for 100 Years?
Coldest Winter for 100 Years.
Yeah.
Made that, put it out on a very small kind of
Different label.
Indie label. It did pretty well considering we didn't have an awful lot of money to do it. But it's some of my favorite stuff.
Now, I want to ask
Closest
you,
to.
real quick, I want to ask you about the cover, the floral arrangement. It reminds me of Teardrop Explodes Wilder. Coincidence?
Coincidence, but also weird because it was painted. That's not an old painting from the 17th century. That was painted by the keyboard player, Gerrard Quinn, from the Wild Swans Mark I, he left the band to pursue his art.
Okay.
So as you can see, he became an amazing artist. We stayed friends.
Yeah.
He plays a little bit of piano on some of those tracks on that album. He supplied me with covers again. So now, because at that level I was at in 2010, without really touring heavily and stuff, you can't really make a living doing that. So when you make an album that it costs you maybe $2,000 to make it, it might bring $4,000 back in. Really, by the time you pay, you know, your recording costs and everything else, it doesn't really pay for itself. Hence why nothing's happened for a long time. I've had a lot of archive stuff I recorded in the past that never came out. Has been coming out every few years. Yeah. Like the Dream Diaries is about to come out again after 20 years. 20 years. So in 2019, just before COVID, I recorded a fourth Wild Swans album called Lucifer's Childhood with Marty Wilson-Piper from The Church.
Yes.
Ricky Mamie again from the Jonestown Massacre. All-star band again, but COVID hit just before I could get the vocals recorded. When COVID cleared and I got in touch with the studio to finish the album, the studio had been sold because they'd lost so much money from COVID. They'd had to sell it. The masters were missing. I don't know where the tapes are. Until 1 week ago, I'm here in Dublin, and I'm walking in the street. I see the engineer walking towards me that I've lost touch with, and say, Tom, where are my masters? And he said, oh, I've got them safe at home. Oh, wow. So at some point soonish, when I can, I'm going to nip over to the UK, finish the vocals, and put that on there. But it just seems to me there's a pattern here that stuff never comes. I'm not like Prince that I record it on Friday and it's out on Monday. But things come out 5, 10, 20, 30 years later. But that's okay. I'm used to that now. It can't go on much longer because I'll be 110 if, you know. So, but I would like to get that Lucifer's Childhood out. It's really good that I can remember, you know. I'd quite like to do a solo album, another solo album. Here in Dublin, something completely different, something more, something more intuitive, a kind of Mark Hollis talk style thing.
Wow.
I mean, you know, not copying them, but I mean that's the attitude I would go into the studio with, to create in the studio, not have a tightly rehearsed band, you know, doing 10, 12 songs, just see what happens.
Yes.
I've never done that. I'd love to do that. See what happens in the studio.
Oh, see, that's the guy there. It's one of my idols.
Yeah.
And, even the early talk. I wish I could have talked to him before he passed away. Yeah.
What else? So to bring up to date, my partner and I moved here to Dublin. She's running a theatre here, or theatre school here. So I thought, what am I going to do in Dublin? Forming a band here it's very different in Ireland. It's a different, everyone plays an instrument in Dublin, but there's a European, because of part of Europe, there's a European sensibility. There's a lack of cynicism, and I need
Oh, you need
cynicism.
that. You need
I'm a Brit. I need that healthy cynicism.
that.
So I can't. So if anything's too earnest,
Uh-huh.
so if I'm walking down
Oh,
down
oh,
down
well,
Grafton Street in Dublin,
oh,
and there's a busker playing his own material, which is
yeah.
very rare here. Actually, everyone does, Taylor Swift. Um,
Right. Well,
and if it's too earnest, I
yeah.
love you.
I
I
was
can't be
gonna say,
doing it.
then then Bringing Home the Ashes must have done real well in Ireland, in Dublin. If they're not
Well,
cynical, if they're not.
weirdly, this is the maddest thing of all.
Yeah,
So in Ireland,
yeah.
in between the Wild Swans Mark II, sorry, in between the Wild Swans Mark I and Mark II, there was an Irish band called the Wild Swans who had a #1 hit record called Dancing at the Crossroads. They couldn't be further away from my Wild Swans.
Yeah, right, right.
But what the mad thing is, they were managed by a guy that used to manage my Wild Swans.
Is that right? Is that
What
wow?
was he thinking? What was he thinking?
Exactly. What are the
Because if you
chances?
go into Tower Records,
Yeah,
there would be a Wild Swans Liverpool
yeah,
section. Why would they
yeah.
call themselves? Anyway, it happened. Um, so I thought, what am I going to do if I'm living in Ireland now, which it looks like I am, even though we've got a house back in Glasgow. Go figure. If I'm living in Glasgow, what am I going to do? So I thought, I don't want to write another memoir yet, a second volume, because it did very well. It actually did very well. But I don't want to I don't want to spend another year looking over, or 2 years, 5 years, where it's going to looking over my shoulder into the past again. So I've decided, so for the past, what are we in? The past 7 months, I've been writing a novel, and I'll take the rest of the year to do it because I think that's the best thing I can do with my energy right now is to do something I've never done before. And if it's successful, it will open up some doors that are denied to me. It might not be, but I'm hopeful it will be. I think I know what I'm doing. I think I've written an original story that deserves to be told. Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. Music's kind of it. I want to make more music, but it's not easy. I've got a very loyal fan base that will buy everything I do, but it's in the low thousands. It's not in the high thousands. So, I've got to be very careful how I do it, really. I never get, well, I was going to say I never get any bigger. I don't get any smaller, but actually my profile goes up without me releasing new material. It's just something about the times. I think as we get older, I know you're younger
Yeah.
than me, but I think as our generation get older, if you're artistic or you're a musician, it's time to consolidate on your past, put your greatest hits out, and because we're not going to be here around forever. It's time to do that. And because I don't have that really, I'm not that sort of musician that could have the greatest hits.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I want,
it's a different approach these days with the internet and everything else, and playing live.
but that would be the smart move.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
non-Gemini move would be for
yeah,
me to put the Wild Swans back together, or a Wild Swans together, and
yeah,
go on tour with merchandise and play the hits.
yeah, yeah,
And maybe go on tour with New
yeah.
Order or
Right.
someone, or Depeche Mode or whatever. That would be the thing to do.
Yeah,
But it's hard.
it's
It's hard
hard.
to do
Well, I was
it
going to say
from.
the flip
Uh,
side before I finish that
yeah.
is that it's harder to do that these days after COVID. Everything's shut down, and it's slowly coming back, the live scene. But the money it
Well,
takes.
that's the problem. It costs money to
Yeah,
even start. And
right.
the thing is, when you're 17 or 23, you're
Yeah,
doing it. You're all mates together. You're doing it. You're not doing it for the money. You're doing it
yeah.
because it hurts you not to.
It
It's
hurts. Yeah, right,
painful not to.
right, right.
When you get older, it's like, you know, even 20 years ago, I'd have the problem of trying to put a band together. Someone would go, "Oh, well, I've got a baby now, and I've got to look after them on Thursday. I can't
Yes.
be here." Now it's like
Yeah.
I've got my grandchildren at the weekend.
Yes. Right.
It gets harder and harder. Or, oh, I've put my back out. I was gardening, and seriously, or I'm not as fast as I used to be. That's what happens when you get to our age.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I've ever said this. As an exclusive for you. You know what I'd like to do? You know how Shirley Manson from Goodbye, Mr. Mackenzie got taken up by to front garbage.
Yeah. Garbage. Yeah.
Yeah. What I want is some big American kind of band or ex-band members to say, hey,
Yeah.
who was that cool Liverpool singer? We should get him. I'm here.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I would love to front, particularly a heavy band. I'd love to front a heavy band and rock out, because I never got a chance to do that very much.
Right. Well, I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Hey, you never know once we get this posted who's going to see it, and you never know. And I'll send you a copy, but you'll get a copy, and then you can post it wherever you'd like.
Oh yeah, I'll repost yours, whatever works for you. I know how to. Sometimes if I do a podcast and people ask me to retweet it or copy it on Facebook and stuff, if the website's just got some typography or something, I know it won't get viewed as much as if I put a cool photograph with it. So sometimes I might repost it, but I'll
do what it takes to get.
I'll do what it takes to get the most
more mileage.
viewers.
The most yes.
Yeah.
The end.
Well, I haven't done a podcast for a while, and I haven't, and you've got some exclusive stuff on this. So yeah, you'll get some hits.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know I will. I know with you and your fans, I know I will. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a long time coming, Paul, but
yes, thank you so much, Greg. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, and
thank you so much. Yeah. Have a great day.